And lastly, we have Bob Davidson representing USAID. The USAID supports education initiatives across the globe with the primary purpose of ensuring education for all. USAID produces an APS study and plans to do an APS meta-analysis, particularly as it relates to donor and host government engagement. It has a pilot program in Ghana that provides capital and capacity building to APS.
About 5 years ago, I was building schools in Cairo, and we were building them in a slum area in the northwest part. Actually, it's in Giza, if you want to be specific about it, in a place called Mex. And it was at this place where it had become so crowded. Mohammed Naguib became a modern slum, a new slum, just millions and millions and hundreds of thousands. It became very crowded. But there was still that little palace there, and there was still this date palm orchard, and we got permission to build schools there. So I was managing, it was a $114 million project in education, which is, even in Egypt, that's a lot of money. So we were building schools, and building 3 schools on this one plot where the orchard was, and we had this slum all around us, and the project manager pointed out 3 private schools, and he said, I'm going to put them out of business, And I thought to myself, here's a guy that I knew this guy well. He's a wonderful guy. He'd spent his entire career setting up completely unsustainable community schools. And now what he wants to do is shut down these 3 schools that seem to be operating without any problem at all. But, it was just it seemed crazy at the time. A wonderful guy, but, and then when I walked up here, the United States Agency for International Development, a provider of education to support education for all. Education for all. It's a completely political word. It's just 3 little words, but it says a lot. It says you've signed on. And you're marching. Now, one thing I want to explain is the governments of the places that you live, they actually need you more now than you need them. Obviously, you don't need them because they're giving you nothing. But they do need you because they have a lot of obligations to fulfill. And there's this thing called the Millennium Development Goals of 2015. And by 2015, all the children in the world are going to be going to school. And it's going to be a wonderful thing, and we'll all celebrate it. But governments are really in a jam now because they've all signed on to this, and every year the donors give them money. And they say, how are you doing on those goals? They say, we're doing fabulous, actually. We're moving right along. But what they're doing is actually, they're including private schools now in their numbers. When they're tallying up the numbers, they say, has anybody did anybody count those private schools? Well, go out there and count them again, And they're starting to recognize that these private schools actually are holding a lot of kids. And that's where a lot of these kids are, and they're looking for them. In 2006, the Minister of Education, in Egypt, 17% of the kids go to private schools. And he said that his goal was to raise that number to 23%, which was a miraculous statement, because they took a look around and they said, there is no way we can cram these kids into public schools. It just can't be done. And he made that statement that his intention was to raise the number of kids from 17% to 23%. This year in Ghana, the Minister of Education at the National Education Conference, he thanked private school owners for the contribution that they make to educating Ghanaian children. Again, this isn't something that you would hear a little while back. People are aware that these schools exist. Now, what I do, I work for the United States Agency for International Development. Obviously, development aid, we love the children, but it's a political organization. Condoleezza Rice and President Bush, they came out with the 3 Ds of foreign policy, which is, defense, diplomacy, and development. And unfortunately, I find myself sometimes in bed with defense, sometimes in bed with, diplomacy. Sometimes everybody's in bed together. It's not always a comfortable place to be, but it's a political work that we do. And there's a very political nature to education too. It's a promise that a government has made to people that they can either fulfill or they can't fulfill. And it's becoming very critical right now. And in the development world, we've had two things happen recently. We've had what's called the Paris Declaration, and we've had the Accra Agenda for Action. And in both of these things, countries have said, you know something, we want more control over these development programs. We want country ownership of these programs. We want to be able to make more decisions. And we all signed everything. So we all signed it. We're going to sign everything, so we did sign it. But it indicates something that has happened, that there's a lack of patience now. And governments realize that they have to make these changes. You know, the governments are looking towards solutions. They see private schools as solutions. This process that they've been following in the past, you know, pro-poor policies haven't really proven to be very pro-poor in a lot of situations. And it's causing problems. And solutions have to be found. Indicators are getting tougher. They want to know now, it's not only good enough you have to get the kids in school, it's are you educating the kids? In the past it was, have you trained teachers? Have you trained teachers wearing red hats? Now, you know, at USAID they're starting to look at indicators, are these kids doing any better on their 4th grade tests? And say, oh, well, you know, let me get back to you on that. And look at the numbers. You know, so it's hard. You know, I had the Department for International Development in my office recently. They're a British organization, and when a British organization comes to an American organization, you know, something's up here. And they were accountants, and what they're doing a study called Value for Money. And value for money, you know, the DFID has been putting all this money into what's called, you know, basket funding or, you know, sector-wide swap funding. And they've been putting all the money into education and saying, okay, now what, you know, how did it work out? And so they come in to talk to me, well, what do you think? It's like, well, I don't know, what do you think? You know, you're a smart guy, you make a decision, you know. Yeah, you talk to them for a while. And we haven't seen the report yet, but there is a report that's going to come out from DFID, and we'll see what their thought is on their effectiveness, you know. These misunderstandings about affordable private schools, it's changing. And I think we can be I think we could be in the lead here. Governments realize the Ministry of Education in Egypt has 39,000 schools. They just can't manage it. You know, in the Ministry of Education, the Ghana Education Service in Ghana has 13,000 schools. It's just unworkable. You know, and we support the centralization schemes and everything else. But until the schools are, you know, part of the local community, managed in the local community, and respond to the needs in the local community, they're really not going to be able to make these many changes. So, you know, I think we have to find out ways in the future we can work with government. I think we can. The Ghana Education Service, they have a private education unit there. They're looking at getting a new director. They're talking about different policies that would be important. They've asked about the possibility of schools run by private individuals, staffed with Ministry of Education teachers. I know, dear, I know. You know, people, you know, they're trying to come up with ideas, and everyone can't be a winner, you know. So, you know, we'll try to see what we can come up with. But I think it's going to be an exciting time, and I've been enjoying this. Thank you very much.